For several weeks, our Gospels are taken from the so-called Sermon on the Mount, which is the gathering, basically, of what it means to have Christian ethical principles. You want to know what it means to live as a Christian, you read the Sermon on the Mount, it's pretty much all there. And we've been taking it section by section. The readings today are very rich. I just want to deal with two aspects of them. The first is you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve God and mammon. The issue here is not that we don't need to be concerned, attentive to the needs we have in this world. It is that we are not to be overly worried about them. It's meant that we are not to be overly concerned about them. It comes down to a matter of priorities. If one's life is focused on possessions, or as St. Ignatius says, the two big obstacles, possessions and positions. You know, my place in the community, my place in the company, my place in society. If I'm focused on that, or I'm focused on gathering stuff, things, money, security, so-called security. If that's my focus, then I've really got it out of whack. And it is impossible to serve God needs as if they are the primary realities in our lives. One does, in fact, choose. You cannot have both. So it's a matter of priorities. Who's in first place? What's in first place? If our relationship with God is in first place, then all these other things fall into place. They have their place, but it's not number one. So another way of looking at this is the word that is a very strong Christian word that I don't think we use too much other than that, and that is the word attachment. What is our hearts attached to? Sometimes we can be attached to a lot of little stuff that just gets in the way. And part of what prayer does is it helps us to become more attachments, help us become more truly free of heart, to separate ourselves from those things that hold us prisoner, our looks, our health, our position, our possessions, whatever. To be free of attachment. So the reason we have, for example, in the Old Testament, the whole tradition of tithing is to help people remember that everything they have comes from God. And one way to make that so we don't get attached to it is you give at least 10% of it away. You do that deliberately, you do that consciously, you do that as an act of thanksgiving, and you do that as a way by which one becomes more detached. If one has to agonize in order to do that, I'm attached. If one has to just struggle and go through all kinds of contortions in order to do that, then I'm not truly free of my attachments to energy, stuff, time, positions. And the Lord wants us to be truly free. Seek God and His righteousness in first position, and all else will fall into place besides. The second issue is worry. Do not worry. Do not worry about tomorrow. The reality is, worry is useless. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't accomplish anything. Someone told me once it's an interest paid on a debt that has not come due. Now, one of the things about worry, if you choose to worry, you're on your own. You get no grace for that. You get no God's help for that. Whatever we have to actually face in our lives, God is bound to give us the help, the grace, the strength we need to to face it, to deal with it, to live with it if needed. God is bound to help us with the actual realities that we have to deal with, the actual pain, the actual struggles, the actual decisions, the actual defeats, the crises that occur in our lives. God is bound to give us the grace we need to deal with that when it happens, but not when we just worry about it. Not when we just occupy ourselves as if somehow or other we could add 1 ounce of height to our 1 inch to our height, or 1 day more to our life. So the word of the Lord is, trust God. Trust God's love. Trust God's care. Trust you're in the hands of God. That's the ultimate reality. And simply do not worry. It doesn't mean you don't take precautions. It doesn't mean you don't take some care for the things of this world, turn the heat up, pay your bills. But it does mean you don't worry about it. You don't lose sleep about it. You don't get all enough fluff about it. You don't let your mind occupied with things that would take you away from constantly acknowledging, I am in the hands of a loving God. When all is said and done, God's the only thing that matters. No one gets out of this world alive. We are in the hands of a loving God, and that makes all the difference. And we should see that in our lives through freedom. We should see that in a freedom of heart, in a rather spontaneous joy. I don't mean giddiness, but a joy that is real in our lives. A confidence that whatever is happening, all is ultimately well because we are in God's hands, who loves us beyond all else. The very image that's used of God's love, a mother nursing her newborn child, that kind of intimate love. That's the way God loves us. And as a child, we are to trust that love, enjoy that love, find freedom in that love, and give thanks always for that love.